If we can keep the deer out of it, we're gonna have huge vegetables for the winter. We'll have huge produce in the spring as well.
Hello crafters, Gil with Tanglewood Craft. I guess I'll start out by telling you I'm doing better. We're actually up at the garden. I'm still on light duty, so I can't really do much, but I thought I'd shoot some video. Cindy is pulling weeds. Our garden didn't amount to a whole lot, but we didn't completely expect it to. We got some stuff out of it, some zucchini. I think we got just a few tomatoes. So anyway, part of the problem right now, what we've got is basically a fence made out of fishing line. It's something that Cindy came across. The idea is the deer brush up against it. They can't really see it, but they brush up against it, and it gets where it discourages them. It didn't work out too well. We were doing good until they figured out that they could get in here. She's getting a license. I'm getting a license for this modern gun hunt coming up in November. So we're going to try to see if we can both maybe bag our limit. That'd be great. Have a lot of meat in the freezer. We're not sport hunters. We're subsistence hunters. I grew up that way. I mean, that helped us get through the year eating deer. But you can see it's pretty much just weedy and kind of done in for right now. We've got to do something, especially next year, to protect. The other thing that we've learned that we're going to change, our tomatoes didn't do all that great. I want you to look, even as the remains, you can see how big this plant is. This one's a little smaller. This one's a little smaller yet. And then right here we had some plants, but there's not even a sign of them. But then this one gets a little bit bigger, and that one probably at one time was. Right here is probably the culprit. That's a walnut tree. And apparently they dropped some poison down. I knew pines did that, cedars. Apparently walnut trees do too. So the plan is next year we'll move the tomatoes on down here on this end of the garden away from the walnuts. We don't have any walnuts down on this end. And as you can see, she's throwing the greens over into the chicken pen for them to come along and find. Don't know how much they'll actually eat it, but it's there for them. And they haven't been doing too well on the weeds that are in there, don't look like. Got at least one little squash right there that something got to. We'll throw it over in there. Cleaning it up so that tomorrow she can plant.
Hey crafters, welcome back to the garden. Today we're going to try to get a few seeds in. I do have some plants started that I planned on bringing up, but the more I thought about it, I figured that was just bait for the deer. So today I'm just going to get some seeds in, and then once I get the fence a little more secure, I'll work on getting the plants brought up. They're fine where they're at. So the only things I'm putting in today are some beets and some carrots. We do go through a lot of carrots. Not everybody in our family likes beets, but for those of us that do, we're gonna go ahead and grow some. I've never grown either one of them before, so we're gonna see how it goes. I've just dug a small trench. We don't have a water source by the garden, and it's been pretty dry lately. So what I'm gonna do is I've got a 5-gallon bucket of water, and I'm just gonna scoop some water into the trenches, lay the seeds, and then put a little more water once I cover them. That'll give them a good start until either we get some rain or get some more water up here.
And what are these?
These are the carrots. I actually didn't buy these. Our son Travis decided that he wanted to contribute some to the garden spot, so these are some of the seeds that he bought. Okay, we'll just do one row of carrots. Just lightly pat that over. Don't want to bury them too deep.
Sure, you've seen people plant seeds before, but This is a a recording, whatever, of our journey.
Okay, well now that I've got them covered up, I'll give them some more water because I've got it coming from both sides. Hopefully that'll be enough to get them to germinate. The reason that I chose these particular spots to plant in right now is that the vegetables that we had here this summer were some of the first that the deer got. So my thinking is there's still a lot of nutrients down here without me having to add anything else. If you remember, back in the spring we were not ready for a garden because we're never ready for anything. And we were not able to get raised beds done the way we had hoped. So this is a mixture of compost and chicken litter from when we cleaned out our chicken houses this spring, and it has done amazing at growing crops. If we can keep the deer out of it, we're going to have huge vegetables for the winter. We'll have huge produce in the spring as well.
Now folks, one of the things I kind of want to take over for a minute and show you. If you see this cardboard laying on the ground, of course we put that on here earlier. It's between rows, kind of in the walkways to try to help keep weeds and stuff down, but it's also a sign of what we intend to do with the raised beds. We want to use something of a back to Eden method with these raised beds. Maybe even combine it a little with some hugelkultur, depending on what crops there are. At our age, some of the crops like the beans and the peas, some of those shorter crops like that, we want to build up taller raised bed hugelkultur beds. I'm repeating myself, I know. So that we don't have to bend over so much and it's not so hard harvesting them. Of course, some of the others, tomatoes and stuff, if we want to, we can grow them. I've seen people grow those in big, like a big potted plant. When I used to have my job driving and delivering parts, I drove by a patio garden, basically, that an older couple had. I drove by every day, and everything they had was in pots. Future videos will tell you about some of our more concrete plans we're getting made for getting a supply of water up here so that we can better take care of animals up here and take care of our garden, because the garden we hope to expand. These, once we can get a coop built across the road, what are our coops now, we're just going to leave them right here and expand the garden and turn those into greenhouses. Probably for starting plants maybe earlier in the season, and that way they'll be right here close to the garden. Stay tuned to the channel because there's going to be lots of changes to this garden. This is, I think we mentioned it before, this is our experimental year on this. For instance, this corner, as I talked about earlier with this walnut tree over here, we're not going to be able to make much use of it, but we do have, I believe, these raspberries, Cindy?
Raspberries, yes.
Raspberry, lots of raspberry vines right here.
Wild raspberries.
Wild raspberries that we're just letting them do their thing. Hopefully they'll start producing before long. We've dumped a little bit of compost in here. As you can see, there's a lot of leaf matter and stuff. We intend eventually to have some blackberry. There are some blackberry vines on the place. And when we can get our orchard in, we'll probably have blueberries as well. But look in the future, when we start getting more infrastructure in, for this to expand and to be better protected, hopefully over the winter, we can replace these T-posts with taller ones and put in deer netting to better protect what we're going to have, and maybe get some raised beds going as well to better protect our crops next year. Maybe we can have more to put away for the winter next year and have more of our own food next year. It's one step at a time.
Okay, I've got the carrots planted and some Detroit red beets. I did pick up these golden beets this year. I've never had them. They're supposed to have a milder flavor, so I'm hoping it makes believers out of some of us. But if anybody has had these before, please drop a comment below telling me what you thought of them, how they grew. I would love to know ahead of time. Thanks.
And just so you know, we've been doing lots of talking the last few days. We picked up a book, which we'll drop you a link to it, but it's a really good book about farm management. And the principles in it apply to any size farm, whether it's a homestead like ours or, you know, a bigger operation, even maybe commercial. Sorry about that, folks. My camera app shut down because my phone got too hot. Oh, and I was talking about the farm management book. The good thing about this book is you can go to the website and get their charts and everything and print them out to use them for yourself. So we've been doing a lot of talking, and we're going to be coming up here walking the land more and measuring things to see how much usable land we're actually going to have once we clear everything. Stay with us, see how we expand our operation, get our gardens, because we're going to have a second one eventually. How we're going to get all this stuff planned out and laid out and get it to where we're closer, sustaining ourselves, feeding ourselves, not depending so much on a food system that neither of us can really trust anymore. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel, put a like on this video if you would, and we will see you in the next one.